Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Racing. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself, Chris Grant, and my absent co-host, Chris Racing, is unfortunately not here today, but we do have a special guest. We've got Dan with us. You probably know Dan as at 1000 ASINs on Instagram, Twitter, probably YouTube. He's a $20 million a year wholesale seller on Amazon. And our goal today is to get Dan to let loose on some of the secrets of building a wholesale business on Amazon and discover what he's done to grow to $20 million in sales. Dan, thanks for hanging out, man, today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Now, you guys know the drill. Before we get started, I'd like to make a deal with you. We literally spend minutes getting ready for each episode. So if you get some value from this show, do us a solid, pound that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment, because the only way we can grow this show is by getting you to interact and see that you want more content like this. You keep your end of the bargain, we'll keep showing up and bringing you some education mixed with entertainment. All right, let's dive in. So, Dan, I want to start like from the very basic building blocks, because I know that some people are going to see this and maybe they're just getting into Amazon, maybe they're doing a little bit of retail arbitrage, a little online arbitrage, or maybe they have gone down the path of private label first. And so, for those who are new to the concept, can you kind of give them an overview of what wholesale is and kind of how it differs from the other models?
Yeah, for sure. So wholesale is essentially it's a very simple business model. It's basically buy low, sell high, which is similar to arbitrage as well. But the primary difference is you are buying directly from brands or authorized distributors of those brands and reselling the product. That's it in a nutshell. You have authorization from the brands. Oftentimes, you're working with brands to improve their Amazon presence in exchange for being able to resell the product. Um, so that's the primary difference between arbitrage, private label, wholesale.
Okay. What what drew you to wholesale? We know that you can grow any of the business models massively. So what took you down the wholesale path rather than building out your own brand, or heck, maybe even becoming a $20 million OA seller?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll get briefly into like my journey in the beginning on Amazon. So I was first introduced to selling on Amazon through YouTube, actually, and at the time, this was back in 2018, and pretty much most, if not all, the content was geared around private label. And
Mhm.
actually, I was about this close to going to private label. I had, I don't know, 20 grand to my name, and I was ready to risk it all on one product. And the more I looked into it, it was just so many different steps, and I concluded that it was kind of like selling on hard mode. It's like it's really the last business model I think you should try to start with. Fortunately, I stumbled upon some arbitrage content with some people scanning items in stores, so that's what I did to dip my toes in the water. And so I actually started with retail arbitrage the first few months, and then went into online arbitrage. And I actually purchased your one of your info products, Tactical Arbitrage Academy. Um,
Oh, nice.
so so I was using tactical arbitrage for online arbitrage for about a year, and got to actually seven figures in sales. So I was
That's awesome.
moderately successful with arbitrage, but a couple of things happened that made me want to transition to wholesale. So the first thing that happened was I was suspended for 3 months on Amazon due to IP complaints, and I didn't really understand the seriousness of those complaints and didn't address them in time, and ended up getting my account suspended. I had to contact all the brand owners. get the complaints retracted. Fortunately, I went through like 4 or 5 different consultants to get my account back. All my inventory was removed from Amazon. So it's just kind of a nightmare scenario for me.
Hmm.
And fortunately, I did end up getting my account back. But from that point on, I kind of vowed to like never put myself in that position again. And I told myself, I'm going to sell products on Amazon. It's going to be authorized and sanctioned by the brand owner. Otherwise, I'm kind of at risk. So that was the primary motivation to get into wholesale. I also saw there's like a lot of gating issues, a lot of competition where people were buying the same leads or buying, the same clearance sales or Black Friday sales, and the price would often erode down to break even. And it's, very familiar scenario for a lot of arbitrage sellers. A bunch of sellers come to the listing, the price goes down to break even, then the sellers sell through, and then the price is good again, and then a bunch of people buy again, and it's kind of like a roller coaster. And not to say you can't make a lot of money doing that. I think overall the margins and ROIs are probably even better on average, with arbitrage versus wholesale. But I wanted to build something just a little bit more scalable, and that would help me sleep at night, just knowing like a brand isn't going to come after me. So
Hmm. Absolutely. So, I mean, you're kind of the next level. We talk about wholesale, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll reach out to my local mom and pop grocery distributor, something like that." You're going direct to the actual brand, and you're getting. Yeah, we're going to use Nike as an example, although I know you're not getting a Nike wholesale account, but you're going direct to Nike and saying, "Hey, I want authorization to sell." So let's say that someone wants to go down that path, and they want to start reaching out to brands. What is it that they need to do to make sure that they could actually get their foot in the door?
yeah, for sure. So one key difference between wholesale and arbitrage is wholesale is business to business. So like, you know, in a business to business relationship, you need to make sure you're professional. And, just as you vet a supplier or brand, they're going to vet you as well. Look at your website, look at your, you know, anything about you, your business credit, how long you've been in business. So there are a few extra steps to really present yourself in the best light for wholesale. So you want to form an LLC. You want to create a nice looking website, which is fortunately pretty easy to do these days. You want like a nice logo with an email signature. You don't want your name at gmail.com. You want your name at your company name.com. Um, what else? You need a resale certificate. So with wholesale, you're not paying sales tax. You're because you're charging sales tax to the end consumer. So usually on your state website, you can just go on and pay for or download a resale certificate. So there are a few additional steps. Another one I recommend is Dun and Bradstreet, which is kind of like business credit reporting. I would register for one of those numbers, because just like your personal credit is tracked, you can build business credit and have suppliers start opening up credit lines with terms for you. So once you have all that stuff lined up, you're kind of ready to contact brands.
What kind of we talk about in arbitrage, we're like, hey, listen, if you really need to, you could get started for $100, and you could sell books or something like that. Maybe a couple $100 if you want to just dip your toes into some online or retail arbitrage.
Mhm.
But people seem to be afraid of the budget they may need when it comes to wholesale, especially when it comes to brand direct. Yeah, I've got a few buddies, who do it. And what do you actually need to get started money wise and not make yourself look, like you don't know what you're doing?
Sure. I'd say as a starting point, probably about $5,000 is good. If you include like startup costs, like building your website and all that stuff, you might need $500 to $1,000 for all the registration fees and website costs. So that's just like to get started, and then for your actual purchasing, um, I think yeah, about 5,000 is good. You could even go as low as like 1 to 2,000 if you really, you know, contacted a small mom and pop brand and bought, 10 cases of product for $1,000.
Mhm.
So it's not impossible to start at a pretty small scale, but
Hey, Amazon sellers, are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your FBA business? Well, say goodbye to the chaos and hello to Boxem, the all-in-one software that streamlines your shipments, inventory, and profitability tracking in just a few clicks. With Boxem, you'll cut your shipment time in half, gain real-time insights into your business, and keep your inventory under control, all from one simple, intuitive dashboard. Don't waste time. Try Boxem today and take your Amazon FBA game to the next level. Check it out over at cleartheshelf.com/Boxem and start your 14-day free trial now.
But wholesale is very much a game of like money talks. So I won't lie to anyone here. Like a lot of the accounts we have, it's because we were able to do like a 6-figure purchase order right off the bat, where the business is like, the brand we're buying from is like, okay, this is worth it to deal with you guys. You're not, um, buying 3 cases of product, you're buying truckloads of product. So there are some brands like that where, you've got to, swing money around to make the purchase work, to open the account, and to make the pricing work. That said, there are a lot of small brands out there that are just getting started with Amazon or know nothing about Amazon, or you can help them launch on Amazon, um, where they'll be thrilled with a $1,000 or $2,000 order. And that's one of the misconceptions, I guess, that you need to have these crazy deep pockets to compete. And yes, that's true for a lot of the bigger brands, but there are so many smaller emerging brands that would want to partner with a small seller where the right size brand is matched up with the right size seller, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of people who want to go down this path, they're looking for the scrub daddies of the world, and
Exactly.
they're passing right over the little maple syrup mom and pop brand, out of Vermont. Um,
100%.
yeah. So let's dive down that rabbit hole a little bit. How do you find these suppliers? Do you start with product first? Do you start with trade shows? Are you like, I guess, how would you go about finding someone to try to do business with? Are there any tools, or what strategy do you use?
Yeah, for sure. For years, I used I looked at competitive sellers. It's pretty easy to tell if you click on a seller's storefront whether they're arbitraging or selling wholesale products. An
Mhm.
arbitrage seller, you're typically going to see like Nike and Lego and some beauty brands and all sorts of stuff like that. Um, and then a wholesale seller that I want to target at least is selling like fairly obscure brands, but like multiple SKUs from those brands. You can tell they're like, selling the whole product line or a bunch of it. And that probably means they have a wholesale relationship. And I was also targeting sellers that weren't too big. So I don't want to target the patterns of the world with a million feedback because you're simply not going to be able to compete. So I want to target sellers with, that are around my size, like maybe under 1,000 feedback, but still able to secure these wholesale accounts.
Mhm.
So I'll click onto their storefront, find all the brands they're selling, and then contact those brands. So it's basically just ripping off all of the products that they sell. And um, I found like 10 or 15 sellers that just had the right type of stuff that I knew if they were selling it, the numbers were pretty good and the brands were open to opening, wholesale accounts. So that's what I did for years. Now I use a bit different approach. I use software to help me just fast track to a list of brands that meet my criteria. And I
Mhm.
use SmartScout for that. So um, what I'll do is just pick a category and then I'll pick a revenue range. So a brand that's not too big. So I don't want to, like you said, try and get a direct account with Nike or Dyson or Apple. It's just not realistic. So I'll actually cap the revenue at maybe 100,000 a month or 200,000 a month. And then I'll set a minimum revenue of maybe 10,000 a month. So it's at least worth my while and some products are moving. And then I'll filter out brands that don't sell to Amazon, where Amazon's barely on the listing. And then I will also set a minimum number of sellers of maybe 5 sellers, um, which indicates the brand is at least open to adding on more Amazon sellers or is currently wholesaling to multiple Amazon sellers. So those are my basic filters. Then I'll go on there and every category, SmartScout will just push out a list of like, 50 or 100 brands. And before you know it, you have 1,000 brands to contact. So it's pretty easy actually to find brands that no shortage of brands to contact.
Yeah, absolutely. a lot of people come to Amazon because it's something where it's not very people-y selling on Amazon. You know, we don't necessarily have to be in an office. A lot of us are introverts. Some of us, like myself, have a face for radio. So, with all of these things, how do we go about approaching suppliers if I've never done it before and I know my hands are going to be shaking? To put that professional foot forward.
For sure. Well, I will say that I am an introvert, like a strong introvert. So, like, the idea of getting on the phone and getting rejected is like terrifying to me, or was terrifying to me, I guess. I've definitely been like hardened over the years to like just brush off rejection. Um, but yeah, it is. I'm not gonna lie, it's nerve wracking if you've never done it before. Contacting those first few brands, it feels like you're like, I don't know, gonna get in trouble or something if you say the word Amazon. But you have to just make those calls and understand what brands want. So like um, a lot of beginner sellers, they're just focused on buying and reselling products. And the way things are now, you need to have a little bit more high level conversations on how you can help them as a brand in exchange for reselling their products. So I'd say like do a little research on their products, like maybe their listings are deficient in a few different ways, or maybe you know there are certain products from their catalog that sell really well in brick and mortars, and it's not the listing's not even on Amazon. Like there's all sorts of opportunities you can identify before contacting a brand to have like talking points where you make it into more of a conversation where we're both aligned. We're trying to like get to the same place rather than, hey, I sell on Amazon. What's your MOQ? Can I buy $500 of product? And then, brands basically bat away those types of sellers. So so one way to like combat the nervousness is to at least have some talking points, and then another way to combat nervousness is just to not pick up the phone. You believe it or not, you actually can secure accounts without ever actually having to talk to someone. Um, you can blast out a ton of emails and get a few yeses and price lists to go through. It will work if you send enough emails. You can also do more customized email templates where you're talking about their product specifically, their competitors, a little bit more tailored. It's another approach. So if you're like truly, truly terrified of, and you're never going to pick up the phone, um, you can still make wholesale work through email outreach. But I will say the best in terms of like close rates is going to be getting someone on the phone.
Nice. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about relationships. So you talk about getting on the phone. You say you can't actually do this through email, but once you actually like secure an account, what are you doing to nurture the relationships, and or are you? Does that help at all?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have touch points like either weekly or monthly with some of the bigger brands we work with, where we just basically demonstrate our efforts for them, and also like just update them on things on how things are going, and then so they like that, like the continuous contact with us. And then beyond that, it's just being like people they like to work with. So I think a lot of the accounts we have, like we have them just because we're easy to work with and they like us and we're nice guys, and like we show up on time and do what we say we're going to do and try to anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and then it's also just like the joking around and getting into rapport with people is more important than you think.
Mhm.
So my buyers and I, like, we don't 100% of the time talk about business all the time. Like just asking a few questions about that person is it can go a long way. Like, where are you from? And then like, I'm from Tampa, Florida. Oh, cool. I was just in Tampa 2 months ago. We saw a Tampa Bay Lightning game. It was a lot of fun. And then you get them like loosened up a little bit, and then they see you more as like a human. So that type of stuff. And then some suppliers, we go so far as to get them tickets to some things. Like we have a couple distributors here in Massachusetts. We got them a suite to the Celtics last year.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, during a playoff game. That was a ton of fun. We'll meet up for lunch sometime. So I actually, right before this, I had a supplier come in, and he actually bought us pizza. But like we buy him lunch sometimes, and people can visit us, and or like holiday messages. So like right around now is a great time to get everyone like a, box of chocolates or gift basket and just say, hey, we really value this partnership. Looking forward to like even better 2025, that type of stuff. So
Mhm.
it's basically just general B2B sales principles, like, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I was selling insurance, I would forego the Christmas chocolates, but what I would do instead is I would send cookies at like um St. Patrick's Day just to try to stand out a little
Nice.
bit different,
Yeah, that's cool
Uh,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think like holiday messages are a little oversaturated, really, if it's pretty generic.
yeah.
So yeah, you would want to stand out and be memorable there. So yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we've got our foot in the door. The person likes us. We get the price list. We get access to their catalog. How do we figure out what we should be selling? And then, are there any red flags that you guys look for to like rule out products pretty quickly?
Yeah, so if it's a massive list, like 20,000 different products from a big distributor, you basically have to employ software to like run through all those products. Um, so some sort of UPC scanning tool. SmartScout has one. There's Scan Unlimited and several other scanners. Wholesale Inspector, like probably 5 different ones. They all do a similar thing. Basically, they'll run through the list, cross-check the UPCs on that list with the Amazon ASIN. Anything that shows some sort of minimum margin or ROI that you set will return back to you, and then you can filter through those products. So that's like the basic way to do it. What I also like to do is I'm big on manual actually.
Hmm.
So one way to break down a big list that seems overwhelming is to break it down by brand. A lot of big wholesale lists will have like, it might be 20,000 lines, but it might only be like 200 brands. So what you can do if you have a big Excel file, you can like filter it by brand. You can create some sort of pivot table and be like, these are the 200 brands they work with. And then you can actually go into SmartScout and rule out those brands one by one if you want to. So like brand one might sell themselves exclusively on Amazon, in which case it's not a non-starter. So then you've just eliminated like 500 lines of the catalog like right away. Brand number two might sell to Amazon, or Amazon's retailing on like 99% of their stuff. Okay, you eliminate brand number two. And then if you search through a big catalog on a brand level, you can identify there might be like 4 or 5 entire brands through that distributor that that makes sense. And then you focus on that, and then you can chop up the list and then just run the search on that specific brand and take a deeper dive. So I like to do it that way actually, like go
Hmm.
brand by brand, and then if it's like a small brand direct that only produces like 5 different SKUs, obviously that's easy. You just check each one manually and just see if it's profitable on Amazon.
Nice. Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co host, Chris Rasick, has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show. I want to I want to move to scaling a little bit because getting your first account and all of that is it's exciting, but everyone wants to go to the moon. Like nobody wants to
Yeah.
talk about being in the trenches and doing the work at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how would you tell someone that they should be reinvesting their profits like at the early stages to be able to scale effectively and as quickly as they may want to?
Yeah, I mean, I would say quite simply, just reinvest absolutely everything that you can. Try to not take money out of the business. I know that's not realistic for a lot of people. You got to pay bills and whatnot, and I get that. Like, do what you have to do there. But anything you can leave in the business, that's just going to accelerate your growth because we're in an inventory-based business. So, how much money and how much profit you produce is going to simply be a function more than anything on how much inventory you carry. So,
Hmm.
um, so it's like the way like to look at it, like I have a certain inventory valuation. Right now, I have like, I don't know, $5 million of inventory or something. What type of return, like ROI per year, can I get on that? And if I get 100% ROI on that money, um, I'll have $5 million gross profit in the business. Um, if I only had $100,000 of inventory, that 100% same 100% ROI is only going to be 100K. So like,
Hmm.
it's obvious. It should be obvious to everyone. Like the more inventory you have, the more money you can generate with the same types of ROIs and margin. So the only way to get more inventory is to buy more inventory, and the only way to buy more inventory is to have more money to spend. So like, if you're just spinning your wheels and your business profits 10,000 a month, then you would draw that 10,000 profit every month and pay for everything. You're just gonna like be recycling that same, like it's gonna be tough to grow.
Hmm.
Um, but if your 100 becomes 110, and then you get that same ROI, then it snowballs, and then that 110 might become like 121, and then 135, then 170, and like kind of like the effects of compound interest.
Hmm.
Um, so Um, so that's what I'd say. Like if you want to grow, you basically need more capital, whether that's your own profits reinvested or borrowing, debt capital, or like maybe partnerships with friends and family. Any like, but it's just a very capital intensive business. So to grow and go to the moon, you have to, yeah, you just need more to shovel more capital in there. Like since I started, I've barely taken anything out. I've even sold a couple of properties and put that into the business too, like the sale proceeds, just trying to shovel more and more
Hmm.
in there. And I don't see any other way to grow, except the other way to grow, I'd say, is to be like get more like juice, like squeeze more juice out of the existing inventory you have. So that's like things selling faster for higher ROIs and profit margins, and avoiding like fees and stuff. But Yeah, so I would say look to like be very efficient with your inventory, get the most bang for your buck on your inventory, but also you just simply need capital as well to
Hmm.
fuel growth.
Being efficient with your inventory might be harder than getting more capital these days.
Oh
Uh,
God, yeah, it's tough. It's
yeah.
tough.
So, you know, there are a lot of people who want to get into this business because they see people like yourself who are successful, but what they don't see on the back end is all the things that are boring as all get out, like managing cash flow properly. So we've talked about how you need more capital, but how do you manage cash flow in the business and make sure that POs are getting paid and employees are getting paid and all that stuff?
Yeah, so for years, honestly, I just tried to keep it all up in my head, just remember what bills are due and what dates, and that worked for a while, but it got to the point where I had a couple like surprise invoices due, especially when you start getting terms with suppliers like net 30, net 60, net 90 terms. Those invoices, if you don't plan for them, will just like pop up, and you're like, oh crap, I owe this supplier 100 grand, and I did not plan for this. So that happened a few times in my business. I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I really need a better system for this. So
Hmm.
I basically made this big elaborate spreadsheet of like all the cash inflows and outflows and what invoices are due when. So I have like a yearly calendar, and like every tab of the sheet is a month, and then it's all connected to each other. And basically, I just input the bills, like the amounts and the due dates, and like the cash and credit available automatically like recalculates, and then I'll see if I ever have like a cash or credit shortfall like in the future, and then plan for that. So basically, and they have tools like some cash flow forecasting softwares and stuff, but I just thought it was easier to just create my own like manual spreadsheet, and that's what I've been using every single day for almost 2 years now.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. People are going to get into this business or they are in this business and they're going to face some obstacles. Like it's death, taxes and obstacles in your business are kind of the only things that are certain. What are some of the most common obstacles and how can people, get around, over or under them?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest obstacle to wholesale is like obtaining the accounts. And I think you just have to have a mindset of being like relentless, just relentlessly pursue it. You have to like run into the brick wall like 100 times until it finally falls over. So, um, yeah, so I'd say that's definitely the biggest obstacle. I think the biggest bottleneck that I see, and I have a lot of students in my wholesale community, finding the suppliers to contact is not that difficult, but then contacting them, going from contacting them to actually winning the account seems to be difficult. The biggest bottleneck. So I'd say the more you can do to prepare yourself for that obstacle of obtaining the wholesale accounts, the better off you're going to be. Um, and maybe just switching your mindset, like great in that it's like totally anonymous. It's just like you just identify the products. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to sell yourself to anyone. You just buy low, sell high. So I'd say that's the biggest like obstacles transitioning from OA to wholesale stuff.
I like your metaphor. You've got to be willing to run into that brick wall 100 times until it falls over. Uh, that is, I don't know, that's something that I think just entrepreneurs need in general. Whether you're doing wholesale arbitrage, you're doing some other type of business. I don't necessarily want to go down too far into a mindset rabbit hole, but how does one cultivate the willingness to run into a brick wall over and over and over again, and then with a smile on their face, show up the next day and do it over again?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's difficult to do, but I don't know. I just think I have that like innate drive. Like I think some of it can be taught, and some of it is just like traits that people have. But I guess what kept me going is like I just saw the massive potential. If I get one of these accounts, it could be absolutely game changing. And yeah, that just kind of keeps me going. And like I also a mindset of like rejection is just like the opportunity to learn something. So like if someone says no to you on a call, it's just like you figure out what the objections are, and you're kind of just like gathering data. So I think what like hardened me too is just not taking rejection so personally,
Mhm.
and kind of like zooming out a little bit and just be like, it's not like a me problem. It's just might not be the right fit at this time for whatever reason, and that allows me to like just keep going and going. But if you take the rejections to heart, like someone says no Amazon sellers and hangs up, and like you take that personally and think there's something wrong with you, then like that's going to hurt, and it's going to be very very tough to come back and try again.
Yeah.
But if you kind of just like zoom out, almost like looking at yourself like a as like a third party observer, and just like curiously like gathering data and like not taking it personally, I think that will help you run into that wall, and like it'll be less painful. It won't hurt as much, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah,
um,
that makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, all right, let's talk about another one of those brick walls. A product's not selling as well as you expect. What kind of decision or process do you go through to decide whether or not it's time to liquidate inventory to recover some of your cash flow? And then I've got a follow up for that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so unfortunately, stale inventory is part of the game. You're going to win most of the time. Things go your way most of the time, but there's just going to be, for whatever reason, some products that sit longer than you thought. And Amazon is making it an easier and easier decision to liquidate over the years, because the long-term storage fees keep getting higher and higher and higher, and they're
Mhm.
starting to like kick in even faster than they did before. Not to mention removal order fees have
Oh,
skyrocketed. I remember when it was basically like a quarter a unit to remove inventory. It was like essentially free, and I knew that was subsidized. That was probably too cheap of a
yeah.
rate, but now it's like $1 or $2 starting, and then if you're selling like a 12 by 12 by 12 box, like a fairly large standard size item, it could be like $10 a unit to remove it, which is crazy. Um, so now I'm very cognizant of those fees, and I will look at my aged inventory, which you can filter right on Seller Central if you want. There's various softwares as well, and I'll basically make a decision whether like to remove it back to my warehouse. Maybe it's a seasonal high value item, which maybe I'll recall back to my warehouse. It's past the season, so I'll like store it and then send it in next year. Or maybe or maybe it's better just to take like a loss on it and move it. Um, or maybe you could even do like a liquidation order or destroy order if it's cheap stuff. So I used to never really do that. I always used to like wait things out forever or like remove it back to my warehouse. But now I'm definitely more aggressive than I used to be with just liquidating stuff. And I think the another mindset thing it's just like look at it on average. It's like you're gonna win like 90% of the time, but that 10% like you might take a loss on. But if your overall margin is healthy, then like just don't linger on it that much. Just learn whatever you can from it and move on to the next product.
Mhm. How does the conversation go, especially if you have like a brand direct? And I know that a lot of folks who go the brand direct route, they have some discussions about map pricing, or for those of you who may not know, minimum advertised price. Uh, you need to tell the brand that, hey, I gotta drop the price on this. I gotta get it moving, or I gotta get it out of here. How does that conversation go? And are they usually okay with it, or is there ever some pushback?
Yeah, the map stuff really sucks. That's one of the biggest downsides I'd say to selling wholesale on Amazon, especially brand direct. These days, most brands are going to have some sort of map policy, and unfortunately, when you're like one of five or one of 10 sellers, there's usually like a bad apple in the bunch that is just not going to respect the policy, or maybe someone buys it and then wholesales it to some unknown entity who then breaks map. Um, so brands are constantly trying to like figure out their supply chain, and like they're always frustrated if there's some bad actors. And um, I just have to deal with it case by case. Basically, a lot of brands are very, very against map and very strict, or map breaking, very strict, and you're going to lose your buying privileges like basically immediately if you break map. So some brands are ultra serious like that. Other brands are kind of lenient, and they'll just send you like a friendly reminder, hey, go back up to map. And a lot of sellers are like arguing, oh, he dropped the price first, no, he dropped the price first. Like it's a lot of like blame game. We're dealing with a account right now. It's one of our best accounts, and we're one of like four authorized sellers, and these two of the four are just horrible. I don't even know how they still have the account. They just every weekend they drop it by a dollar and like try to
Hmm.
just get away with it all the time. We're reporting them again and again and again and again, and the brand's like, "We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it," and they just keep doing it. So, not gonna lie, that's one of the most frustrating parts of wholesale when you're trying to be the good actor and uphold the agreement and like be a good partner for the brand, and then a couple bad actors ruin it for the whole bunch. That is something wholesale sellers encounter every day. So we try to use that to our advantage these days. We try to use that and push for an exclusive. Um, so we'll approach a brand and say, what type of purchase volume per year are like all your sellers combined doing, all of your known sellers, and they might be like $5 million a year. And then we're like, what if we could like guarantee per a contract that we'll replace that volume and we'll dedicate X number of dollars to ad spend, and we'll do all this like agency type work. And it's only worked a couple times, but that's what we're trying to like push towards. And
Hmm.
um, I think most brands would be better off with one good exclusive seller than like just randomly wholesaling like 10 people.
Yeah. I know arbitrage sellers hate to hear that, but you're probably not wrong. Someone who will actually take care of the listing. And those two sellers you're reporting all the time, I bet you they're the owner's screw up nephews, and he can't get rid of them or something.
Yeah, that's our
Yeah.
speculation as well. Some sort of
Yeah.
relative. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so I'm curious, you've been in the game since 2018. How has wholesale like evolved through the years? And do you have any insight as to what you think is going to happen over the next 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably gotten a little more competitive, but there's still plenty of opportunity out there. I'd say Amazon as a platform is trying to become more and more brand centric. So providing brand owners more and more tools to do everything, not just control the sellers, but just make their brand the best they can be on Amazon. I think Amazon's vision is that like there's just total control over all the listings from the brands. I think that's going to continue, and I think there may be some sort of consolidation um, between like the few companies that really can deliver on promises and like help brands with like content, SEO, advertising, like blah blah blah, all the stuff that like the mega sellers do. I think more and more brands like will seek to partner with them, and I think there will be somewhat of a consolidation. So what we're looking to do is like try to be able to deliver on those like agency type services, which is like the listing optimization, ad spend management, all that stuff. Because I think if we don't, we may be left in the dust long term.
Mhm.
Which But don't get me wrong, I do think there will be plenty of just opportunities to be a reseller for decades to come. Um,
Mhm.
but I think like the scraps will become like more and more finite as
Sure.
as brands can more easily get control.
Is- you brought up Pattern a little earlier, and we know that that's what they're doing. You know, they're going to handle SEO, they're going to handle filing IP complaints.
Mm.
I think they have a partnership with Voorhees or something.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I've gotten a couple
Uh,
of those letters.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
You know, they now have Middle Mile or whatever their other thing is. So they're really becoming kind of this all around. We do handle everything. Is there space for that in like that's of course where maybe the Nike wants to go. I saw the CEO of Pattern write that love letter to Nike on LinkedIn. And but do you think that focusing on maybe middle market brands doing the same thing could be just as, if not more profitable?
yeah. I do, and that's where I like to compete. I want like the middle market brand or even the small brand, and even though there's like the Patterns of the world to compete with, they actually have pretty strict criteria. Like I actually toured their warehouse a few weeks ago and got to have dinner with like some of the executives there, and they were saying their criteria to even look at a brand is a minimum of like $4 million a year of revenue. And then they said that even of those, they only choose to work with like about 25% of them. So they get a lot of like inbound sales. It's pretty cool. Like, you think Amazon wholesale, you've got to like reach out to these brands constantly outbound, but they have such a reputation that they have like a huge inbound flow and like waiting list. So there are plenty of brands that are doing less than $4 million a year, obviously, probably the majority, vast majority. And there's a lot of opportunity for like a medium sized wholesale seller like me to capitalize on that. And then even going further down, like there's plenty of opportunity for the newer wholesale seller who knows how to improve a listing to just do a couple things here and there for a brand. And that's all that brand wants. Like you don't have to be a billion-dollar company with your own proprietary software. Like there are levels to this. You can
Mhm.
learn a few tips and tricks and like keep a brand happy. So I'm not saying like if you don't become Pattern, you're going to be left in the dust, but I just think the overall trend is kind of headed that way.
Sure. Did while you were there, did you happen to ask them who they refer the people they don't do business with to?
There actually is someone, yeah, who deals with a lot of Pattern rejects, and he actually refers those off to some other large sellers that are
Nice.
willing to work with them. And I think I even have that guy's contact info, but I haven't reached out to him yet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. So as we kind of close up here, I always like to ask this question because typically what I've found is that business owners, entrepreneurs are learners at heart. Is there a particular book or podcast or blog post that maybe has had an impact on you over the past 6 months?
Chris Grant podcast, Clear the Shelf. I mean,
I I
bar
appreciate
none.
that. I appreciate that.
But if I had to choose a second place, let's see. I really like the book Atomic Habits. That's been
Mm.
a cool book to. I mean, I don't always follow good habits, far from it, but I like the framework, and it's yeah. I think it's yeah. I'd recommend that to anyone not having read that. Um, and as for a newsletter, there's a newsletter called Selling on the Beach from this guy Max Sigurdsson Scott, I think is his last name. He's on LinkedIn, and he just has an absolutely value packed LinkedIn with a great newsletter, and he's doing one Amazon tip, 365 Amazon tips this year, like one for every day, and they're like quality tips. So I'd recommend giving him a follow.
What was his first name again?
Max. Yeah, let me just look up the full name so I don't butcher this. Yeah, Max Sigurdsson Scott. Yeah, you can find him on LinkedIn. Think that's a valuable newsletter.
Perfect.
And yeah,
Now, where people are probably going to want to, they're going to want to follow you. Where should they go to learn more about you or anything you offer?
yeah. So I'm primarily just on social media. At 1000 ASINs on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I'm also offering wholesale education. We launched a community like 4 months ago or so. So if you're interested in like a deep dive into wholesale and want more information there, just DM me on Instagram. And then last thing I'll plug is my prep center. I have a New Hampshire tax-free prep center. And even though I'm a wholesale seller now, I'm very familiar with OA, and I used to do OA and have a lot of OA customers. So if anyone needs prep services, you can go to epicprepllc.com, and yeah, we've got some capacity right now. So yeah, that's all I'm going to show.
Nice. Thank you. So we always close up the pod with a quote every single week, and I thought this one was a good one. Something I actually heard from another podcast. It's generally human nature to overestimate risk and underestimate opportunity. The risks are probably not as big as you perceive, and the opportunities may be bigger than you think. And that, of course, is from Jeff Bezos, who we all know and love. Dan, thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me.
Yeah, 100%. And you head to Miami this spring.
I'll absolutely be there. You getting another Lambo?
Excellent.
All right.
Probably, yeah. So
Okay.
I'll
All right.
give you
I'm
a
gonna
spin in the Lambo. This
Perfect.
spring.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. That's the pod, everybody.
All right.
We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.